Hey, welcome back to the Undrafted and Unqualified Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Anthony. I'm back with Vinny. You know, big week. We're here. We're at the playoffs, fantasy playoffs, heading into week
Made it.
15, 15, 16, 17, the standard 3 weeks of the fantasy playoffs. Vinny, how'd you do? Make any playoffs or what are we looking at?
Yeah, I did make the playoffs in four out of my five leagues.
Okay.
Three of those are dynasty leagues, so it's a little different than kind of what we're talking about on redraft, but it's all the same stuff. Still feel good about it. Unfortunately, the one league I didn't make it in was our the league that we're both in. But I finished strong with a win, putting up 150 against a playoff team. So, uh, well, it got some decisions to make with the keepers in that league, but four out of five I'll take, and I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I went two of two getting the bye weeks in both of those. My third
Okay.
league, I don't really care about. I made the playoffs in that one too. So
You.
three of three technically, but the two that matter, I got the bye in both. So I got the one seed in our league. I went 10-4. And but
Yep.
funny, I got first like in the standings, 10-4. You were last but had 5 wins. Like it was a very close league this year across the board. I think there
It
were a lot of
was.
ups and downs for a lot of people. But yeah, keeper league, it'll be fun. I'm going for the three-peat. So we'll see if I can get it done. The bye week helps a lot because I don't feel as confident with my team this year as I had the last few years, but you never know. My team's still good enough to get the one seed. So
And the bye week in general is just good because like fantasy is a game of sort of luck. Like some
yep.
guys could just have big weeks. You win all year, you're 13-1. You go down to the sixth seed that barely made it in. So bye
Yep.
week always helps.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like this past week, um, in my other league, I had if this was a playoff game against a lot of other teams, I probably would have lost in that league because I had like Bijan, he didn't have a great game. Trey McBride didn't have a great game. Pickens had a rough game. So like all my studs in that league, it was just, didn't turn into points. But
Yeah.
yeah, we're looking ahead. So with that said, when we do the recap today, we're gonna do a lot more like looking ahead rather than like, oh, this guy had a great game. It's gonna be a lot more like, oh, this was a game. Like, what do you do with it heading into the playoffs? So a lot of talk about the playoffs today. But before we do that, we'll hit the news as usual, starting with the injuries. Brutal news. Daniel Jones, Achilles tear, done for the year. It's a long recovery. It was a comeback season for him, turned into a great year for the Colts to start the year. Pittman looked good with him. You had Tyler Warren looking good. So a little bit of a disappointing news there. And he looked like he had a great playoff schedule as well. It was like I was feeling like he could be a league winner. So it sucks to see.
Yeah, I mean, alone, the fantasy is perspective is tough too, but just for the Colts in general, you push all the chips in, go get two first for Sauce Gardner,
Yeah.
and now you might not even make the playoffs. And you're look before that, you were looking like one of the best teams in the NFL. So yeah, brutal situation, but um, we got it's Philip Rivers season potentially. On a different
Yeah.
note, they signed him to the practice
Yep.
squad, so
Yeah,
we'll
that's
see where
another
that
piece of
goes.
the news. I think honestly, Rivers is an upgrade from Riley Leonard, who's been banged up too. He's week to week. So,
Yep.
the other guy they had was Brett Ripien. So it's like, do you want to
Oh
roll him
gosh,
out? Like
no,
Rivers might
not
genuinely be an upgrade. So
yeah.
I'd still downgrade the offense as a whole by a lot, including Jonathan Taylor, unfortunately. But yeah, but I mean we'll talk Colts when we get to the recap a little bit more in detail. But yeah, downgrade the offense as a whole and hope Rivers looks decent enough to look like Flacco does right now. So that's what I gotta say about that. Zach Ertz, ACL tear, that's another brutal one. Him and Eckler in the same season, which both could be career enders. It's been a rough year for the Commanders as a whole in terms of injuries, so you hate to see that. I mean, Ben Sinnott might get a chance, but yeah, it's just man, you hate these kind of injuries.
Yeah, and Zach Ertz was a cool story too because it was kind of like a resurgence for his career in Washington. Like he had a great fantasy year last year. He was sort of quietly producing this year in week to week. And but yeah, I mean, hey, Ertz was that kind of blocker for Trey McBride in Arizona. Everyone was saying he was blocking Ben Sinnott. I don't think these last few games will be the time, but yeah, sucks for Ertz.
It
Um,
was the ACL before McBride too. It was
was it?
the same injury.
All right, maybe Benson and next McBride.
Yes, it would suck to see this be the way it happens, but
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, Achan, keep an eye on that rib injury. But they said he could have gone back in. They just played it safe. They were up big against the Jets. There was no reason to play him. They let Jalen Wright run crazy, and he looked good. So they're
yeah,
saying Achan's going to be good to go for Monday night. But maybe pick up Jalen Wright. Play it safe just in case he doesn't go. Jaden Daniels, elbow injury, he re-aggravated it. We were just talking about this before hopping on the pod. I think it'd be smart to shut them down for the year. They're 3-10, so it's like their season's over. You might as well just shut them down. There's no point in bringing him back if he re-aggravated the same elbow injury. So yeah, we'll keep an eye. I mean, Mariota's been keeping everybody afloat, so I wouldn't worry too
yeah.
much if you have a receiver.
Yeah, I think it would be like malpractice to let him come back because I think it was already questionable that they played him in the first place this
Hmm.
past week, given their record. Like I'm pretty sure they're mathematically eliminated,
They
but
they
uh,
are.
they were before that. Yeah, so yeah, I don't think there's any chance he comes back to play. I would be very surprised as well.
Yeah, I mean the original timeline too. It sounded like this was early for Jaden, so they might have rushed him or he rushed himself. I know he was
Yeah,
really eager to play, so
you got
yeah,
to think it was him. I don't
yeah,
think they would make that decision. Yeah,
yeah. I think they'll shut him down now though. But
yeah,
keep an eye if he plays awesome. He could still be good for fantasy. Tyrod Taylor groin injury. He didn't return. I mean that's a downgrade. Fields has been hurt too, and so they had what was his name? Brady Cook, I believe, was the
the third
quarterback.
straight. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, either way, like if Tyrod doesn't go, it's a downgrade for the offense for everybody. Like we saw some bad games from Adonai Mitchell and John Mechie again. So yeah, not great for the Jets as a whole. I mean, even Brees was bad. So just hope Tyrod's okay if you have any Jets. If not, you might want to consider benching them. David Njoku, his knee, he was ruled out. Fannin balled out when Njoku went down. So, yeah, if Njoku is out for some time, I'd fire up Fannin so easily. I think he could be a league winner if Njoku doesn't play. Um,
Yeah.
and Gino hurt his hand. He came back in, but just hope he sticks around because that team's also been eliminated. So you got to hope Geno sticks around. They don't shut him down for the year. Otherwise, it's not good news for Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty.
Yeah, because as bad as Gino has looked at times, he's beneficial for fantasy, not hit playing him, but the other guys, like you mentioned, around him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a big storyline to watch for like the big time guys like Genty and Bowers for sure.
Yep. I will say, I think Kenny Pickett is one of the better backups in the league. So I think there's a chance it could end up being okay if he's to miss time. Like, I definitely wouldn't sit either one. Well, Genty maybe if you have better options because he's got some brutal matchups. But you're probably still going to start him and just understand that you might have to lower your expectations.
Yeah, I mean, I think a theme that I'll bring up throughout the episode when we're talking about it is like I'm a believer in like, listen, it's the playoffs. Start the guys that got you there. Like you can't get cute with matchups in the playoffs. I think it's just like it is what it is sometimes. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, if you have better options than Genty, that's hard to do. So yeah, but overall, I think you got to start them. But we'll
Yeah.
talk about
Yeah, for sure. We talked Rivers. Lastly, Shador Sanders, named starter rest of the season. He balled out against Tennessee. Makes a lot of sense. It's confusing why they didn't go to him earlier with Dylan Gabriel looking like buns, and it took an injury for them to, say, all right, here you go, Shador. But Shador's gonna start. So it seems like good news for the Browns as a whole, that offense as a whole. So there you go.
you.
So yeah, let's get into that recap. So, like I said, we're gonna go kind of thinking about, what to do moving forward. So, first game, Thursday night, it was an awesome shootout. Lions beat the Cowboys. That was a great game. Um, looking ahead, right? Dak, I think you should be starting Dak every week still. Javonte Williams, I think you could start as an RB2. I'd feel very confident with him as an RB2 moving forward. CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, you have to fire up. I know Pickens did not have a great week, but I'd still be starting Pickens week in, week out as a must start. Um, Ferguson, he had 10 points in this one, 5 for 58. How do you feel about Ferguson?
Again, like I think, well, with the tight end position specifically, it's a guy that you just kind of have to start. Like I think it's such a slim position. It's so top heavy in general, and he's one of those guys, few guys that can like week to week, if he has a good week, he can sneak into that like top three scoring ability like for a week for a singular week. So I feel good starting him. I just based on like the limited other options is the really the only reason I say that.
Yeah. I think I'm with you on that. Also, we didn't mention it in the news, but CeeDee Lamb was ruled out with a concussion in this one. If for
Yeah,
whatever reason he misses time, you should be firing up Jake Ferguson as a like
yeah.
top three tight end. Like he was so good without CD earlier in the year. So um, consider that. Ryan Flournoy went crazy in this game, 9 for 115 and a touchdown on 13 targets. He led the team. Is this a fluke? What do we think about Flournoy?
I think it's an absolute fluke. Like especially if you're I would never consider playing him in the playoffs, in the fantasy playoffs, just because of the fact that if CD's out, that's the only way I'd say Flournoy like could come into any sort of
Yeah,
consideration. But
yeah.
with a healthy CD, Pickens and Ferguson, I don't think there's really any room for Flournoy to have another game like that.
Yeah, in a game too where this they had to throw the whole game. It was the Lions who have a potent offense and they're putting up points.
Mhm.
So you go to play Minnesota next week, the Cowboys do. So it's like that's the number one defense against receivers for fantasy this season.
Yeah.
Then you have to consider the fact that they'll probably go up early. They might just lean on Javonte Williams a little more. I mean, they're still a pass first offense, but yeah, unless CD misses time, I'm out on Flournoy. The only time I would say Flournoy, like one of my leagues, we do kind of like that toilet bowl bracket where the loser of that does the punishment rather than just end of season, bottom of the
Okay.
standings. So we
Yeah.
play out through the playoffs for that. I would say if you want to take a shot in that regard and you're like, I really need to play a guy, some of these guys are not good on my team. I don't mind taking a shot on Flournoy, but I wouldn't do it this week against the Vikings.
No, yeah, for sure not. But it is a cool little like, all right, if CD's out, maybe you
He's been scoring touchdowns too, even with CD. So, you
that's
know,
a very
it's
deep play though.
there's
Yeah.
touchdown upside, yeah. Deep shot if you really need to. I think we're
Yeah.
on the same page. Goff, he was my start of the week, only 16 points. I consider that a miss, honestly. Um, this was a
Yeah.
game you'd think like, all right, he's gonna go crazy, but it was all Gibbs. It was, I mean, 3 touchdowns for Gibbs. He had 7 for 77 through the air. He's putting up like McCaffrey stat lines through the air right now.
Hmm.
Gibbs Gibbs is a must start. We know that. Amon Ra, shocked. I was shocked he played this game, but he's a must start. Um, Jameson Williams, I think you have to play him right now. He's been so good as of late, and I think it's just tough to take him out of the lineup right now. If you've played him the last few weeks heading into the playoffs, it's probably, you're probably getting into the playoffs because he's been playing so well. So I feel like you
Exactly.
have to start him and just hope for the best, knowing he could also goose.
Yeah. He's like if I'm looking at an opposing roster for the team I'm playing, he's like my worst nightmare to see there.
Yep.
Because like you could either see like be very happy he drops like 5 points, or this guy's dropping 30 on you and you're
Yep.
losing round one. So yeah, he's a super polarizing guy, but I do agree. Like he has looked better, he's been more involved. But this first week of the playoffs matchup is tough, like we mentioned with Minnesota. Or no, that's the Cowboys. Sorry. So
Yeah.
who do the Lions have next week
The Lions,
or
let's
this
find out.
upcoming week?
Let's find out. Let's find out.
But
Um,
I agree. I think you could absolutely play Jameson Williams, and like that's the kind of players you're looking for that could have a boom week that wins you a upset playoff week.
they get the Rams, which is a pretty good matchup. It's supposed to be. Now that I'm reading this, I'm pretty sure it's the highest over under of the week. So
Okay.
there's going to be a lot of passing involved in this game. I think it could be a good week for him. Um, yeah, he gets Pittsburgh the following week, which is another good matchup, and then Minnesota for the championship, which is not great. But yeah, I don't mind starting him this week against LA at all. I think it could be a very good week. David Montgomery, he did well in this one. Only 6 carries, but 60 yards, a touchdown, and a catch. How do you feel about Monty heading into playoffs?
I don't think you can trust him. I think that if he's like been a regular player on your team, you're like throughout the season, you're most likely not in the playoffs if you've been starting him at your RB position.
Yep.
But yeah, if you somehow made it with him as like a key part of your team, I don't know, like I wouldn't be able to trust him. I would look to other options for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I feel the same way. So it's very much, start Gibbs, start Amon Ra. I'd start Goff if it's a good matchup. If you've been playing that route with Goff and maybe you're like streaming quarterbacks like that.
Yep,
Um, yeah, JMO, I think you got to play for now. But yeah, Monty, I can't trust either.
yep, no.
So yeah, that was definitely a loaded game, but a lot of talent on both sides, especially for fantasy. Heading into the next game, it should be pretty quick. Dolphins, who took care of the Jets. Um, this is a situation like you just look at the box score and you see a ton of carries across the board. Like they have transitioned to a run first offense as of late. And Jalen Wright, 24 carries. Achane had 7. Ollie Gordon had 5. There were a couple receivers who had 1. Tua had 1. Zach Wilson had 2. So it's like you just look through the box score. Tua only had 21 passing attempts. So I think as long as Achane's healthy, you should start him every week, as you have been. And if not, I think you should play Jalen Wright. I don't know what the matchup is this week for, let's see,
I, I'd be a little, I guess, depending on the matchup, I'd be a little
Pittsburgh. It's a good matchup.
I'd still be a little hesitant just because of the fact, like, obviously we mentioned that HN went out, so that's why we saw like the bump in carries for Wright. But also, like, it was this game was over quick. Like
Yeah.
the Dolphins put him to bed pretty quick, and I think that allowed for them to kind of run the ball as much as they did. So I don't know. I think it could be like again one of those deeper plays, but I don't think it's something I'd mess around with in the playoffs.
So
I,
here,
I
here's why I think you can start Jalen Wright. I mean, 24 carries. Yeah, it's because they put him away, and I get that. But the last 4 weeks, so they had the week 12 bye. So from week 10 on, and week 10 is against Buffalo, which you're thinking, okay, Buffalo, like Buffalo's gonna run them up. They're gonna have to pass all game. 21 attempts for Tua, 20 the next week. They go on by 23 last week and 21 in week 14. He hasn't had more than 23 attempts in their last 4 games. So I think that's why you can, especially in a game against Pittsburgh, who I think it's going to at least be close enough where they're going to continue to try to run the ball. I mean, 24 attempts doesn't just go away. So I think I'd be confident starting Jalen Wright. Hopefully Devon Achane plays and you just get to fire up Achane. But I think
oh,
I'd be comfortable starting Jalen Wright if
okay.
Achane doesn't go.
Got you. I thought you meant with HN on the
Oh,
field.
oh,
Okay.
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Got you. All right, then
No.
I'm on board with you. If HN were to miss time,
All
yeah,
right.
I would feel comfortable starting Jalen Wright for sure.
Okay. So yeah, Achan, if Achan doesn't go, you can start right. Um,
Yeah.
and then I think I'm only comfortable starting Waddle. Waddle had a good game. He continues to lead in targets. He has a big target share. There's not a ton of passes. Like I just said, like there haven't been a lot of attempts, but there's good matchups ahead for the Dolphins as a whole. And I think Waddle, just the target share, he went 5 for 50 and a touchdown. So there's there's possibility for Jalen Waddle to be a league winner, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you already touched on it at the beginning when we were talking about Achan's injury, but I feel very good that he plays this week just
Yeah.
because of the fact that like the Dolphins have quietly crept into like a playoff
Yep.
chase for one of those wild card spots. So they're
Yeah.
still very much alive. Where like they're not going to be resting guys. They're if HN can in any chance play, they are going to play him. So
Yeah.
I feel good about him and firing him up.
Yeah, I believe they're 5-1 in their last six, I think.
Yeah, something like that. They've been on
Yeah.
a crazy streak.
They've been on a tear. As for the Jets, I would say you could stream Tyrod Taylor, but then there's the injury. I just don't think you can. So I'm
No.
I'm out on the quarterbacks from here. I'm out on all receivers. Even if Garrett Wilson comes back, I don't feel comfortable with Garrett Wilson. I think they're gonna sit him out. If Garrett Wilson comes back, I'd consider him more of, a flex play, maybe like a wide receiver three. Like I don't want him in as one of my top two wide receivers. So,
Yeah.
I'm probably starting Garrett Wilson when he comes back, but other than that, there's not a lot to like. Breece Hall, like it was a gross game from him too. I I'm starting Breece Hall. I'm going to if I have him, but I'm gonna understand that it could be very volatile for these last few weeks.
I agree with you on Brees. And then just to touch on Garrett Wilson, do have him in a league, so I looked into kind of like the potential for him to play,
Yeah.
and it seems very slim. I think it would be like sort of a Jaden Daniels situation where like it's him kind of forcing their hand because he's a guy that has played through injuries in the past and been on bad teams in the past, and this exact scenario has presented itself. But I don't think he goes. So yeah, but I agree. If he does go, it's kind of a tough situation. Like I don't even trust him to put up numbers if he does go as a fully healthy guy right now. So yeah,
Yeah, just looking ahead for the schedule too, they get Jacksonville, brutal matchup for running backs. So I'm playing Brees, but I don't like it at all. New Orleans is a fine matchup, and then New England, which again, I'm playing him, but that's a brutal matchup. So I'm not excited about Brees Hall. Honestly, nah, you're not benching him. You're not, but just understand it's going to be tough sledding with him the rest of the way.
yeah, no, for sure.
The next game, the Steelers beat the Ravens. Rodgers was okay. I'm not starting him anytime soon. This was a weird one. They were up early and they barely ran the ball. And Jalen Warren was my start of the week. And if you look at his running line, 8 for 13, you're like, what the hell? Well, he went 3 for 49 and a touchdown through the air, which saved his day entirely. Um,
Yeah.
Kenny Gainwell 6 for 27 through the air, and he had 4 for 15 and one on the ground. What do you do with these guys? Like I mean, this was a game script where you can run the ball, and they didn't, and they just kept passing and passing. So there's room for both in the receiving game, but what do you do with both of them?
Yeah, it's so tough. Like this is a classic Arthur Smith where like right before fantasy football playoffs, we thought we had the situation figured out. Like Jalen Warren was still the goal line guy. Kenneth Gainwell would mix in, kind of change the pace. Kenneth Gainwell steals a goal line touchdown this week. And so like I
Mhm.
now I don't know what to think. I mean, I have Jalen Warren in a few leagues. I'm playing Jalen Warren in all those leagues just because like I said, he got me there. He still has a role in the offense. So I'm not very much worried about Jalen Warren, but it just does suck to see that like he had this huge role and it's just kind of getting eaten away for really no reason. So that's what I think about it. I'm definitely playing Jalen Warren. I wouldn't feel as confident with Gainwell, but I think you could play Gainwell in a pinch. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that?
I don't really like either. I think so their matchups get hard. They get Miami this week, which is a pretty good matchup. I think you could start both in this matchup personally. I think it could be close enough where there's enough receiving work, but enough ground game for Warren too. So I think you could play both. Kenny Gainwell obviously is that big receiving threat. Um, but then they get Detroit. I don't like Warren for that game at all. That's a really bad matchup. Gainwell, maybe you can play because of the receiving work again. So, maybe you can play Gainwell in that. But then they get Cleveland, another tough one. So honestly, out of the two, I'd prefer Gainwell the rest of the way.
Hmm.
It's not a good situation for the ground guy who seems to be Warren. And again, this is a matchup they were up and they didn't even use him. 8 for 13 on the ground. It's just that's not good usage. 3 for 49 and a touchdown saved his day, but the usage wasn't good. So I personally like Gainwell more, but I don't even trust him that much outside of like a flex play rest of the way.
Yeah. I just think like it's been so different week to week, so it's hard to
Yeah.
predict. So I just think you have to trust the guys that like I trust Jalen Warren still. So there hasn't been a concrete answer, you know what I mean? So I can't expect that like Gainwell's gonna go out there and get the goal line carry again. So it could be Jalen Warren next week. So
Yeah,
it's
I
just
mean,
like,
Gainwell's getting the receiving work, which is what I'm banking on because I mean he had 6 catches this week for 27 yards, and then we've seen him take off for like 90 yards receiving on like 7 catches in those weeks Warren's not around. So I'd prefer Gainwell personally just because of the receiving work. I know Warren had 3 for 49 through the air, and one of those was a touchdown, but I think with the receiving work, you can just trust the floor a little bit more of Gainwell.
yeah, that's fair. I think it just the situation overall sucks for
Yeah,
fantasy.
yeah.
But yeah.
DK 7 for 148 on 12 targets. I mean, finally he did something. I mean,
Yeah.
highest yardage total he's had all season. This was the situation where it's like, this is the guy I pinned as my guy, is like, this is what it's gonna look like. I don't know what the matchups look like moving forward, so let's take a look here. He's questionable too. What the hell? His stomach. Um, I guess he was experiencing stomach pain. Oh, right. He was experiencing stomach pain, stayed in the hospital overnight in Baltimore, but they're saying he should be okay moving forward. Miami's not a great matchup. Detroit's a great matchup, but then Cleveland, which gross. So I don't think I'm really trusting him. Again, I'm probably starting him. I'm probably starting DK. I'd feel okay as a wide receiver two. Definitely better as a wide receiver three. You're probably starting him at least the next 2 weeks. Cleveland, I'd try to look for other options if I'm being honest.
Again, though, if you get to the championship, like you
Yeah,
got, but like
yeah,
that's a long ways out. But yeah, DK was just it was interesting. Like you said, like that's the guy that everyone I think even the Steelers pictured when they traded for him. Like you like those deep balls, Aaron I think he caught like 2 40-yard plus passes that from
yep,
Aaron Rodgers on like just bombs over the shoulder that like that's what we were looking for. But yeah, that's just they had to have a game like that right before the playoffs to make you think he's back. But yeah,
yeah,
I agree. I think just because of the volume there, you start him for the
yep.
potential for a boom week touchdown. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think matchup based, like understand his floor is super low and he's going to be really volatile. As for the
Yeah.
Ravens, Lamar, he finally had a good week for fantasy. I mean, the rushing touchdown helps a lot, and his rushing yardage total, he had 10 points on the ground, which is big time.
Yeah.
I am still worried about him as a whole. I think I'm starting him the rest of the way now. I feel confident. Last week I had him as my sit of the week actually, and I was talking about this, Vinny, where it's like 3 straight weeks under like 8 points. I don't want to start him until he does something. He did
Mm.
something, and it wasn't a good game, and he still did something. So I think I'm feeling confident enough to start him the rest of the way, and hope for the best. But yeah, it still doesn't feel good. This is not the Lamar you drafted at all. Um, but yeah, I think I am gonna be okay starting him at least.
Yeah, with Lamar, I think the biggest piece during that 3 game stretch is that he just wasn't rushing the ball. Like he wasn't using his legs. And that's his game. That he turned into sort of a good pocket passer, but we all know that Lamar for
Yeah.
his rushing ability.
Yep.
And so that the I agree with you that like I have him in a league that I'm in the playoffs and I was starting him regardless, but um to see him get going on the ground for like 40, even 40 plus yards in a score, like that was promising. So yeah, I agree that I think, we could start to see the MVP, not MVP Lamar, but like that Lamar at the beginning of the season that like, was just putting up 20 points regularly. So hopefully that's what we get for the playoffs.
Yeah, hopefully he's healthy. Derrick Henry, it wasn't a great week. He didn't score, but 25 carries. You're starting him every week, and you're feeling really good about it.
Yeah.
Um, uh, for the receivers, Zay, this was like DK too. 8 for 124 on 11 targets. It's like, whoa, Zay Flowers has arrived.
Yep.
I don't. I feel even worse about Zay Flowers than I do about DK Metcalf. The matchups
I'd
are
agree.
there, so I'd be fine to play him in a pinch if I need to. Honestly, if you have Zay Flowers as an important role on your team, you're probably not in the playoffs. So,
Yep.
if you did make it this far, he's probably like a flex play. I'd feel okay depending on the matchup and depending on the other guys you've been putting in the flex with him. So I think it's all right. Likely got in the end zone too. So likely's a dart throw if you're really in a pinch at tight end. But I don't love it just because Mark Andrews is there too. Mark Andrews also just got an extension, 3 years, 39 million. But yeah,
Yeah. I do honestly like I don't know if this is worth a lot of time to talk about, but like I do like Likely as an option, like as like especially at the tight end position. I think just because they run so much to tight end,
they do.
um,
Yeah.
and like Likely caught the red zone touchdown this week. Like that's usually Andrews. So I think that's a little bit of a fluke. I think you could rely on Andrews to be the red zone guy, but like Likely's had a couple good weeks in a row, and he you got to remember he came back from an injury where this is kind of him starting to get going these past couple weeks. He only had a couple weeks before to get going. So I don't know. I do kind of like him as like a deeper option for the playoffs if you like have to, just because the tight end position like we talked about is so volatile and slim at the end, like near that bottom 10.
It'll be a third straight good week because they get Cincinnati again for the second time in 3 weeks.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it'll be another good week for Likely. I'd definitely feel pretty comfortable starting him this week.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the Saints beating the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are 2-5 in their last seven. It's been rough. Let's start there. Let's start with the Bucks. Baker's looked not great. He doesn't look healthy. He's missing throws. I don't feel comfortable starting him. I'm probably not starting him, and I'm looking at other options. Maybe there's a guy like Goff I have on my team as well. Um, Maybe even like a Bo Nix is another guy there that you can feel more comfortable playing over Baker. I don't feel comfortable playing Baker, and I'm looking for other options if I can. Um, Receiving wise, like Igbuka, you got to just hope that when Mike Evans is back and Chris Godwin's back, I mean, Godwin is back full time already, it seems. It was a decent game. I wouldn't start him anywhere. Igbuka, I'm just hoping that when Mike Evans is back, it might actually open up the field for him a little more. But he's getting a lot of uncatchable targets thrown his way. And that's the issue for Igbuka right now. I'm not confident, but I'm rolling him out week to week. If he got you this far, like you said, you play him, but it's an unconfident play.
Yeah, it's such a weird situation because when I was looking into my start sits for this week, I was like looking at Ibuka and I was just looking at his past few games. Like 4 games, he's had under like 6 points, I believe, like in a row. But each game he's had over 8 targets. So like it's just not something's not connecting. Like you mentioned those uncatchable targets, but it's just like 2 or 3 catches on 8 plus targets every game. It just doesn't make sense. So yeah, it's a super like polarizing play this week. But again, like you said, this guy was like top 5 wide receiver for the first like 7 weeks of the season. Um, so I don't know if he can fall into that boat of like, did he get you here? Because it was only for like 7 weeks. But I agree, like it's a tough one to sit, but it is in my mind some one that you could consider given some other options or like based on matchups. But yeah, that's a tough one. It's a weird situation.
Yeah, I think you have to roll him out because the targets are there. But
Yeah.
I think Baker's not healthy. It kind of looks that way when you watch him play.
Hmm.
As for the running backs, Bucky's looking good. He got a receiving touchdown in this one. He's getting work. He's the lead back again. I'd feel confident as him as like a high end RB2. I feel good about Bucky moving forward. Um, My preferred handcuff is Sean Tucker. He scored in this one as well. So I think even though Rashad White had a couple more carries than him in this one, I think I'd prefer Sean Tucker. You know, we kind of saw that transition in that last game before Bucky returned anyways.
Yeah, no, Bucky, not only like just based on the stat line, but like I got to watch some highlights of that game and the game live. He looks back like he's
Yep.
moving the way that we
Yep.
all like to see last year. So, yeah, Bucky's a full-time go, I think, for going forward, especially with them kind of like trying to sneak back into the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. As for the Saints, um, not confident starting. You know, I'm probably still starting Olave. You know, you're probably rolling him out as a wide receiver too, maybe. And
Mhm.
it's the Saints, so you never know what you're gonna get. But I'd feel pretty confident, even though this was a down week. I think Juwan Johnson's a fine play as well, and that's kind of it from the receivers for me. Juwan Johnson's had some good weeks. This was his first week in like 5 weeks or something like that, where he wasn't in double-digit PPR points, which is great from the tight end position.
Yeah,
So. I'm feeling okay about Juwan Johnson and El Olave's going to be good. Um, Devin Neal, he got all the work. He got in the end zone in this one. I'm feeling pretty good about Devin Neal. If Kamara gets ruled out any longer, they could shut down Kamara the rest of the year too. And honestly, they have a great schedule ahead. So Devin Neal, you could maybe roll out as like a back end RB2. I actually am. I think I'm a little higher than others on him, but I'm pretty confident in him as like an RB2 if I have to. So. Yeah, I don't think Devin Neal's a bad option if you need to. 19 carries is pretty substantial. So,
yeah. I mean, also production speaks for itself. Like, listen, the guy's been producing these past couple weeks when given the opportunity,
yeah,
and that's a little frustrating to watch as like a Camara owner in one of my leagues most of this year. Just because it's just like, all right, maybe it is a Kamara issue. Maybe he's just hit his point, hit his limit where he's just not
yeah,
the same guy. But
I think so.
yeah, I agree that if Kamara's out, like he's a absolutely, it sounds weird because he's on the Saints, not a great team, not a great offense, but he's a viable option. I think it definitely a lot of flex appeal for me there.
Yep. I agree. Um, yeah, and then Tyler Shuck, 2 rushing touchdowns. He's not a
Yep.
great passer, but honestly, he's improved as of late. I'm pretty sure. Let me just double check this real quick, but I'm pretty sure 3 of the last 4 weeks he's had like 17 or more fantasy points, which is the case. Yep. And, you know, it's not a great matchup against Carolina for quarterbacks this week, but then he ends with the Jets and Tennessee, which are two great matchups. He's a
Yep.
streamable quarterback to me. He's very much a streamable quarterback if you're in a pinch.
And I think, we mostly focused on like a one QB league, but in a two QB league, I think you can absolutely consider him for that second spot just based off of this rushing upside that he's started to pull out more recently. So yeah, I mean, good for him. The guy like kind of was a joke coming like in terms of getting a shot to play, and he showed up in terms of like showing some of what he can do.
Yeah. And 2 of those 3 games over 17 points were in the 20s. So
Okay,
that's a great week for a quarterback.
very good.
Yeah, let's go to the next one. Jaguars beat the Colts. The Colts lost Daniel Jones early. Riley Leonard did not look good. Um, Pittman, I didn't even notice. He still had 12 targets, 9 for 79, which is a great game. Honestly, I'm comfortable still starting Pittman regardless of the quarterback. He's still the one there. Downs, I'm not. Downs is yeah, Downs I'm dropping probably. Pierce has been good in recent weeks. He went 5 for 80 in this one. So, you know, there's still some opportunity for him there if you really need to throw a dart in your flex spot. I'd be okay with Pierce. Um, Warren, you're going to keep starting, although it feels like it's not great. It hasn't
Yeah.
been great as of late. And then Jonathan Taylor, you're going to start anyways. You got in the end zone in this one. The carries are there. Just know that he's probably not popping off for 40 points every week like he was doing earlier this year.
Yeah, I mean, I did want to talk about Jonathan Taylor a little bit just because of the fact that these past 3 weeks, and I think, this is just because, like you said,
Hmm.
this dude was a three touchdown a game machine for like 12 weeks of the season. But these last 3 weeks, he's struggled a little bit.
Yeah.
I like you said, no question at all. You fired him up over any most people in running backs in the league, top five play for the all things considered. But yeah, are you worried at all about like his playoff or fantasy football playoffs for him?
Not really. I think it kind of feels like Bijan, where it's like,
Mm,
you have a lower floor, um, and you could get 9 points out of them just because of the
yeah,
quarterback downgrade. But at the same time, they could still pop off. They're still elite running backs. If Rivers comes in too, I think there's a chance dump offs could happen to JT
yeah,
more.
same
He didn't
too.
get- he didn't even get a target in this game. So, I think you consider that, and that's good news for Jonathan Taylor owners. Um,
I
I
agree.
think I think the floor is lower, the ceiling is lower as a whole, but I think he's still going to be just fine, and you're starting him and feeling confident as an RB1 rest of the way.
I agree. Yeah.
For the Jags, um, what to talk about here? Trevor Lawrence is streamable. If it's a good matchup, he's been good. So if you need to stream quarterback, honestly, if Trevor Lawrence is available and it's a good matchup for the quarterback position, I'm taking him and I'm playing him with confidence. This was a good matchup. He produced. Um, Other things. ETN, it really looks like Tootin is just a non-factor now. I think you
Mhm.
could drop him unless you have ETN and want to cuff him with Tootin, who Tootin would produce if ETN were to miss any time. He's one of those handcuffs we've talked about in weeks past, is like you pick up handcuffs, um, pick them up, but ETN went 20 for 74 and two touchdowns. RB2 at least the rest of the way, in my opinion. I'm feeling very confident about him. He's getting all the work, and it's not even close.
Yeah, no, I think definitely RB2, I'd agree. Um, and the Jags, like that's kind of turned into their style of offense. Like
Yeah.
not ground and pound, but like hand the ball to Etienne to create offense for you, not just kind of be a change of pace guy. They sort of leaned away from letting Trevor sling the thing around
Yep.
because that hasn't worked in past seasons. So yeah, Etienne like even back end RB1 play in the right matchup. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Agree.
very good.
Yeah, as for the receivers, this is a little bit more of a sticky situation. Jacoby Myers is the clear one to me. 4 for 39 and a touchdown on 10 targets this week. He's been producing the last few weeks since he's gotten traded to Jacksonville, and he's gotten an uptick in time, like on the field and everything. And it's he's looked good. I really think that he's the one. I think you can start him as a wide receiver two if need be. Back end, but wide receiver two, like I'm feeling pretty confident in that. Brian Thomas is probably my second man up, 3 for 87 in this one. I'm not confident starting him. I wouldn't mind sitting him if you need to. Flex play if you want, but more of a matchup based guy. Then you had Tim Patrick in this one, 5 for 78 and a touchdown. That to me is a fluke because Parker Washington was out in this one. And then when Parker Washington's back, I don't feel good about him. And then, you have Brenton Strange back in the fold too. So Brenton Strange had a down week. He was my start of the week. It was a bad week for him, only 3 for 27. But I think the confident guy for me is I'm feeling good with Jacoby Myers. It feels like the targets, regardless of who's been out there, if they're healthy, if they're not healthy, it feels like everything's still going his way. So even though BTJ is back, he's going to get targets his way. BTJ, I'm fine throwing in as a flex, and Brenton Strange, I think you need to own too. The other two receivers, I'm not confident in. I probably wouldn't even want to own them.
Yeah, based on the production the past few weeks, especially since they traded for Myers, yeah, I'd agree. It feels like the clear one. But BTJ is such a tough one. Like, I don't even know if I'd trust him as a flex play. Like, that
Yeah.
sounds so bad to
Yeah.
say because of like where he was drafted this year, but I really don't. Like, I have him in a league, and I mean, it's a dynasty league. I have a loaded team, but I didn't play him, felt very good about it. And so, yeah, I guess if you have to, but again, if you drafted Brian Thomas with your first or second pick, you're most likely not in the playoffs. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you probably don't need to make that decision. But yeah, I'd agree if anything flex.
Yeah. Bust of the year.
Yeah.
Um, the Titans. win against the Browns. The we say this every week. There's nothing to take away for the Titans. There is a takeaway this week. It was Tony Pollard going 25 for 161 and two touchdowns, being one of the top like two running backs on the week against the Cleveland defense. Yeah. To me, I'm not confident starting him. I wouldn't start him. Again, if you have him, you're probably not in the playoffs. But unless he's been riding your bench, but now is not the time to put him in. I wouldn't be putting him in. I wouldn't be playing him. I think this was just an outlier game for him where they went up early and they could pound the rock. So I think in most games they're not going to be able to do that. Um, I'm not
Yeah,
confident in him. Let him ride the bench.
I'd completely agree. I think just totally a fluke. It is weird though, just how that works out. That's why it's just like with them when it comes to matchups, it's just like
It's
what do
tough
we
sometimes.
like? It's just like this was a no-brainer sit Pollard. No one in the world was starting him,
Yeah.
and then he does this against, like you said, great run defense. But yeah, no way you should be starting him next week unless you have like some absurd circumstances. But yeah, fluke.
Yep. As for the Browns, Shador Sanders, he went crazy. Three touchdowns through the air, 360 yards, rushing touchdown as well. He's in stream category to me. I think so. I think if you want to take a shot, if you're a big fan of Shador, I know there's a lot of fans out there. You know, maybe you can stream him if you need to. I'd definitely prefer like Trevor Lawrence and, maybe some other options out there to stream instead. But I think when you have a game like this, it's so promising enough. I get it was the Titans, but it's promising enough to me that I'm like, it's a potential for me to want to pick him up and play him. If it's a two quarterback league, I think there's way more likelihood that you play him. If not, you know, don't worry about it. But yeah,
It's definitely
promising.
it's yeah, I would say it's intriguing as an option. It's just tough because like the such a small sample size in
Yep.
the offense. Like obviously that he's shown the talents there, but like the Browns have handled the situation horribly, even these first couple weeks, like not really letting him throw the ball until this game. And so like are they gonna let him air out? How many attempts did he even have? Like are they gonna let him air
42.
out 42 attempts again? Like is that what's gonna happen? So yeah, very deep consideration, but it's a cool story. Like good for Shadur to have a good week like that.
Yeah, I think he will air it out, honestly. This is a game script where you think they'd go up and just pound the rock. Nope, they were down the most of the game.
Yeah.
Um, So, yeah, Judkins did not look good. Honestly, what do you do with Judkins? He had one catch for 58 yards, but 14 carries for 26 yards. To me, I'd sit him if I can.
Yeah, I'd sadly agree with you there. I have him in a couple leagues, and like I'm in a tough spot where I really can't sit him.
Mhm.
But like the Browns are usually the team that falls victim to falling behind, and Sampson is the third down back there, like the
Yeah.
receiving back there.
He
So
got a
Judkins
lot
did,
of work through the air too, Samson.
yeah, and Judkins did kind of like he got that bomb of a play where he got knocked down at the one. He caught like a 60 plus yard pass,
Yeah.
but that's like that was a outlier in terms of how they run the offense. So I'd agree if you have better options, like more volume based options, I'd go to that. I think I would.
You're looking at a 2-point game for him outside of that one play.
Yeah,
So it's
exactly. Yeah.
like 14 carries is good volume, but it's a bad offense where it's just not working. Jerry Judy, 3 for 76 and a touchdown. I'm not trusting him. This was just a good matchup. Harold Fannin, on the other hand, 8 for 114 and a touchdown on 11 targets. He's the number one option in this offense, too. I'm starting him, especially if Njoku misses time. We already talked about this, but
Yeah.
I feel good starting him even with Njoku, but 10 times even better if Njoku's to miss time. But yeah, I really like Harold Fannin to finish out the year.
I do too. Yeah, I agree. Even with Njoku, good play.
Yeah. The Vikings crushed the Commanders. Jaden Daniels didn't even look good, and then he re-aggravated that injury. Um, I guess the takeaway is that Chris Rodriguez continues to be the lead back. He's touchdown dependent. It's a fine matchup against the Giants this upcoming week where, if you're in a pinch, if you got a flex guy like him, I'd feel okay with that. I think it's not exciting, but I'd feel okay with it. For the receivers, Terry and Debo, this was a tough matchup for receivers. As we've mentioned, the Vikings are brutal for receivers. I think Terry and Debo are going to be fine. I feel way more confident about Terry, but I think Debo will also be fine. And I think you can put both in like that wide receiver three-ish range. Better than a flex, but you're not super excited about starting either one of them.
Yeah, I'd say you're pretty spot on there. Um, but like just without Daniels, it's tough. I know they kind of well, Debo sort of produced with Mariota
Well,
for a little bit.
Terry 2 weeks ago went crazy in that first game back. That was with Mariota.
Okay,
And that was
so yeah,
against Denver. He went like 7 for 140 and a touchdown, something ridiculous. So I think Terry is a much better option than Debo, and I think you can start him. Um, I'd feel more excited to start him than Debo, but I think both are fi going to be fine plays because they should be down in games too. So
yeah, I'd agree with the wide receiver three range. Anything further than that, you're in trouble. But
yeah. Um, the Vikings, JJ McCarthy, 9. He had a good game. Um, to me, it's a fluke. You know,
absolutely,
they ran the ball more. Jordan Mason got in the end zone. Aaron Jones was running a bit. 25 total carries between the two of them. I don't like either one. I don't want to start either one. I don't want to start receivers. I don't want to start TJ Hawkinson, even though he got a touchdown. Justin Jefferson, we need to have a conversation. Can you start him?
that this is like so we've had a couple. We've talked about like DK. We've talked about Jameson Williams. These names that are like polarizing, but they've always been polarizing.
Yep.
Jefferson, on the other hand, this is like best receiver in football these past 4 5 years. I think you have to. I think you have to. That's my opinion. Just because of like the volume that he demands usually, and
Hmm.
I just can't see this go on any longer where like he doesn't get the ball. Like I don't know. I would agree with you too if you said like you got to sit him, but it's just like I think you have to play him, especially with they got the Cowboys this week coming up, I think. I think you have to, but it sucks. It's such a tough situation.
Here's the problem is I would say you have to start him this week if they didn't play Washington this past week, which was an amazing matchup.
It's true,
This,
very
this
true.
is so it's like if he couldn't produce an amazing matchup, he had 4 targets, 2 for 11. Is like, now going into another amazing matchup, why should he produce in if he couldn't this week? So that's where I'm scared. I think the only thing where I'm like you could start him, honestly, he's down to like a flex play for me. Like I'm hoping I have two good receivers that I can comfortably play above him, and then I can flex him as like a dart throw, like a early season Jameson Williams, where it's like maybe you'll get 18 points, maybe you'll get two. That's Justin Jefferson right now. So
Yeah.
if you have to play him as your wide receiver 1 or 2, I'm scared. I'm so scared. But
Oh
if
yeah.
you can play him as a flex, this is against the Cowboys. They should have to throw because they'll be down. The run defense for the Cowboys has been better as of late. If he's getting right, it has to be this week. So I'm fine throwing him in my lineup, but I'm hoping it's in a flex spot for this week.
Yeah, I mean that feels right, but it's hard to imagine there's any teams where like you have a couple of receivers better than Justin Jefferson. Like just like you had to have
You might at this point in the season.
at this point, yeah, but I'd agree. It's kind of come to that point where it's like flex.
Yeah.
But if you have no better options, absolutely play him. Like do not I think you would agree with this. Don't go to the waiver wire in this
No,
scenario.
no, no.
Not at this point in the year. You absolutely fire up Justin Jefferson. if your only other option is to look to the waiver wire. So
Yeah.
other than that, though, I think you look on your roster and you have to make some tough decisions.
Who has him in our league? Because this is where I want to go. All right. So he's on. All right. Let me find the team.
Let's
So
see.
he missed the playoffs, this guy. He went 6-8. The receivers, this is a 10-man league, which is why I want to bring it up, right? You have George Pickens, who I'd play over him. You have Keenan Allen. That's another rough situation. I'd probably play Jefferson over Keenan Allen.
I'd
You
agree.
have DK Metcalf, who at this point in the season I'd feel more comfortable than Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
And then you don't really have many other receivers you could consider. So, yeah, I mean, Justin Jefferson probably is going to have to be in your lineup somewhere. But
Yeah.
in this situation, he could be a flex play because you're playing Pickens and Metcalf over him. So it's like, I'd feel way more comfortable in that situation. But, in standard 12-team leagues, it's scary. It's really scary.
Yeah, no, it's crazy to think about. And I think that says more about JJ McCarthy. Like,
Oh, yeah.
how do you not get this guy the ball? Like, this, if anything, Jefferson helps you become a better player
Yep.
as a quarterback, helps you feel more
Yep.
comfortable. So it's crazy he had as good of a game as he did without looking Jefferson's way at all. So,
Yep.
yeah, I don't know. It's a tough situation.
Yeah, let's just hope the quarterback situation improves for them next year. But let's
Yes.
go to the next game, Seahawks Falcons, where Sam Darnold, the former Vikings quarterback, has made JSN look unbelievable. 7 for 92 and 2. You're starting him every week. Feel confident in that. Darnold is a streaming option. He's a fine streaming option. Um, as for other receivers, I'm not starting any. I'm starting Charbonnet if I need to for touchdown upside. That's it. Ken Walker, I'm starting if I believe in the talent and believe that it's going to be a good matchup for him. Other than that, I'm not starting either one of them either. I think both are flex plays, Ken Walker and Charbonnet. Ken Walker has big playability. Charbonnet has all the touchdown upside. Ken Walker's also getting a little bit more work, so you have that baked in, which is why Charbonnet's strictly a touchdown guy. But yeah, as good as this team has been, all you're getting out of this team is you're starting JSN week in, week out. Other than that, yeah, I think I just kind of hit on the running backs. If you got anything to add there.
No, I'd definitely say Charbonnet. Yeah, strictly because of the touchdown upside. But I would sit Kenneth Walker regardless, in my opinion.
Hmm.
I don't really think he's proven anything to like be able to be a startable play.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of agree. For the Falcons, rough game overall. Kirk just can't command an offense anymore. This was in a game where they're gonna get blown out. So if it's not a good matchup, it's a bad day for the offense as a whole. Um, Bijan only 2 catches. It's not great. 20 for 86 on the ground, though. You like to see that at least. He's still getting the work. You're still starting him as an RB1 regardless.
Yeah,
Um, Algier, he has standalone upside if he gets in the end zone. He didn't this game, but 11 carries is work. Elite, like maybe the number one handcuff in all of fantasy football, in my opinion.
for sure.
So he should be owned everywhere. Um, and then you had no London again, he had a DMP again today, 2 straight days, and they play Thursday night this week. So it looks like we could miss another game of Drake London, which means you could fire up Kyle Pitts again, who went 6 for 90, 10 targets. I like Pitts. I do. I think the volume is there without Drake London, and it's clear that Kirk Cousins likes him. So yeah, I don't mind
Yeah.
that one at all.
No, back to back top 10 finishes, maybe even top seven finishes at the position
Yeah.
for Pitts. So yeah, that kind of seems to be Kirk's go-to guy. Which is weird because Pitts was so bad with him when
Mhm.
Kirk was the starter or last year. So
Yep.
um yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I agree, Pitts for sure.
Yeah. All right. Simple game. Bills Bengals snow game. Um, I can't believe the Bengals blew that. But Joe Burrow is startable again. He looks good. You love to see it.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it wasn't a great game for Jamar Chase, but start him every week and feel confident in that. T. Higgins hit the concussion protocol again, but he went crazy in this one. You can feel comfortable starting him as long as he's healthy. Gesicki had a good week. I probably wouldn't start him though. I probably wouldn't even want him on my roster. But, if he's to go back to back and have two straight good weeks, then maybe. And then Chase Brown, you're feeling good about too. It wasn't a good week on the ground for him, but he got 12 for 23 on the ground, 3 for 12 through the air, but got a touchdown in each. So it's
Yeah.
like that
Yep.
saved his day. But yeah, I'm starting him everywhere. I think this Bengals offense, you're just starting all four of those guys easily.
Yeah, it sucks that it took like 15 week or 14 weeks to kind of see everything come to fruition and what we talked about, what I was so high
Yeah.
on with the Bengals offense, but it's here. And if you made it through all the drama, the injuries, then this is what we kind of all expected. But yeah, good to see Burrow back, and he's a QB1 play week in and week out.
For
Uh,
sure.
once again.
Yeah, talking about QB1 play, Josh Allen, another amazing week. Fire him up every single week. Um, yeah, James Cook, he'll be fine. 18 carries is a lot. He had a couple catches too. Dawson Knox had a good week, but this is the Bengals tight end defense, historically the worst ever. Kincaid also got in the end zone. I think Kincaid's a fine play though moving forward. I know Shakir got a touchdown, but outside of that, he didn't do much. So I don't really even like Shakir at all. I think it's, you fire up James Cook, you fire up Josh Allen, and then maybe Kincaid if you need to, because tight end's a slim position. And that's
I
probably it
Yeah,
there.
I'd fire up Kincaid with confidence, I think, because he missed the two games prior to this.
He missed
And
it, I
before
think
that,
more than that. Yeah.
really, okay, yeah, it was at least two, I know.
Let's put that
But
way.
prior to that, he was on a good streak of being a consistent option for Josh Allen, like probably his number one receiving option besides Shakir. But did he miss two
He
or
missed three. I
three?
mean, the only thing that's scary about Kincaid, yeah, and you're right, he has been on a pretty good trajectory, but he plays such a low percentage of snaps. Like, I mean, such a low percentage where it's really scary if he doesn't produce. Like 34% of snaps this week, but he went 4 for 41 and a touchdown.
Yeah,
That last game in week 10 where he played 26% of snaps and it didn't turn into anything. The week before that, 35% of snaps, but it was 6 for 101 and a touchdown. So it's
yeah.
like,
Part of me,
yeah,
I have no actual logic off of this, but I just feel like that's how the Bills play offense. They put up points
yeah,
quick, and they score quick, and he's on the field in scoring opportunities. So I think
yeah,
that's just the explanation for that. But I'd feel confident with him at the tight end position.
yeah, for the most part, yeah. The Broncos beat the Raiders. Um, RJ Harvey had a great week, got all the work, 6 catches, along with 17 carries and a touchdown. That's huge. Sutton still looks like the number one at receiver again. Um, Bo Nix is a fine streaming option. Like I'm not confident in him as my starter if I'm heading into the playoffs, but in the right matchup, I think he'll be okay. For me here, I think Troy Franklin's droppable. Pat Bryant has started to creep into his playing time. So I know Troy Franklin had a long stretch of being really good, being that number two, but it really looks like Pat Bryant is starting to creep into that role. So I think Sutton you can start as a wide receiver two each week. RJ Harvey as a running back two with upside. Um, and Bo Nix is like a streamable option, then that's what I like here from the Broncos.
Yeah, I think all of my guys, I was just 10 weeks
Yeah,
late or
really.
10 weeks
Yeah.
early on it.
Yeah.
So it's good though. This is like what everyone expected from RJ Harvey when given the opportunity. And all it took was just a J.K. Dobbins injury, and he's the guy. I think, gonna be a situation where next year, high upside pick. But that's for next year. But yeah, great to see RJ Harvey being the guy for this offense at the running back position.
Yeah, tough schedule, but with the work he's getting, like he should
Mhm.
bear out pretty well. For the Raiders, um, Jack Besh got into a starting role, which is cool to see. But other than that, like you're starting Brock Bowers every week, and you're starting Genty every week. Genty had
Mhm.
no receiving upside this week, so it was a bad week for him. But the receiving upside has been there so much lately that you're starting him anyways, regardless of the matchup, I think. I think
Yeah,
he's much more of an RB2 than an RB1, though. Bowers, top three tight end easily. And I think that's it for the Raiders.
yeah, no, nothing else from me. You were spot on with that.
Yeah, a lot of these later games feel a lot more smooth sailing than the early ones we started with.
Yeah,
We have the Packers beating the Bears. Um,
go pack.
the Bears are a weird one, man. I mean, there was no Odunze this week, which Odunze already was very volatile and starting to get really scary. And it's starting to get to a point where do you sit him for certain guys, you know? So with that said, Burden was the leading receiver. Um, Loveland got in the end zone again. I think Loveland you can start each week. He's getting in the end zone here and there. The tight end's a slim position anyways, so I don't mind that. DJ Moore is super scary. I'm probably not starting him anywhere. Um, yeah, anything on the receivers before I move over?
No, yeah, I don't think you could trust any of them. I mean, Burden was really like shut down in the first half and did all that in the second half. So maybe there's some like they found something where that could be Caleb's guy moving forward the rest of the season, but I don't know. You can't trust him maybe at this point in the season.
Yeah, they're becoming so run heavy, right? 13 carries for Swift, 14 for Monongai, both of
Yep.
which I think are startable. I've talked about their schedule being extremely brutal the rest of the way, but I think you can start both moving forward just because the volume is there for both of them. And,
Yeah.
tack on a touchdown and, all of a sudden it's a good week. It was not a good week for either one of them this week because neither one of them got in the end zone. But, the carries are there, so I think that's fine. And Caleb feels like a back end QB1, start him in the right matchup type deal.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's funny because it seems like Ben Johnson found his Dollar Tree Gibbs in
Yep.
Monty with
Yep.
with Swift and
With
Monungai
yeah.
because Swift is strictly the receiving guy and Monungai doesn't or he had one reception, but for the most part not
He's
a
been
factor
he's been
receiving.
getting more of that goal line work than Swift.
Yeah, yep. So I still like Swift as a play. I think they trust him. I just watching the game, it feels like he's in on more meaningful plays and like in terms of the outcome of the game. And I think that translates to fantasy points for the most part because that's in scoring opportunities, stuff like that. But the goal line work is all Monun So I'd feel similar that you could play him in a pinch.
Yeah. Jordan Love has been balling out. He had a great game. I personally don't feel confident about him moving forward. He gets Denver this week. So yeah, it's tough with Love because I know you've had some weeks too where you're like, great matchup, start him this week. But then he doesn't produce. And then it could be a hard matchup and he produces. So it's not even like you can pick out and be like, oh, it's a great matchup. I'm going to start Love this week. It's like, it's kind of a shot in the dark and just hoping that it's one of those games where they have to use him. Um, this was one of
Yeah.
them. So this was one of them. He was utilized a lot. Two deep balls to Christian Watson, who has felt great, by the way. He,
Mhm.
I would start him as a wide receiver three flex play. He's been too good to sit lately.
Yeah, I mean, as a Packers fan, being very excited when they drafted Christian Watson 3 years ago, now or four, maybe
Think
4 years ago
something
at this
like
point.
that.
Um, he looks like the guy that like they intended to potentially be their wide receiver one 4 years ago. Like that's what he looks like right now. Um, and I think he's absolutely yeah, like you said, like a flex play. You could absolutely play him. I mean, Jaden Reed came back and he didn't play a whole lot, but he doesn't really worry me. He's kind of more of a gadget guy where like Watson stretches the field and that's Love's strength. Like if he hits you on that deep ball, you just turn in 10 points just like that off of a 40-yard touchdown. So definitely a risky play still with Watson, but he's definitely the guy. And it feels like we've
Yeah.
switched it. Like a few weeks ago, it was Dobbs. Like Dobbs is the guy to have.
Who is
Now
now
it's
droppable, in my opinion.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. I just think that's how the Packers receiving room works, where it's just like a
Well,
hot
yeah.
hand.
Once
Because
one,
Wicks had 2 touchdowns a week ago. So like
yeah.
it's just
Well, once Watson got heavy, he became the one very quickly.
yep,
So,
yep,
and then yeah, Josh Jacobs running back one rest of the way.
absolutely.
Rams blow out the Cardinals. We'll keep this quick with the Rams. Make your life easy. Matthew Stafford, great game. Start him. Like, honestly, I think he's a middle of the pack QB1 rest of the way. I think he's going to be a good quarterback to have on your team. Puka
Definitely.
Nacua, start him every week. Devontae Adams, bad week. Don't worry about it. Start him every week. Kyron
Mhm.
Williams, start him. Blake Corum, I think he needs to be owned. I don't know if you want to be starting him just yet outside of a flex play, but he's been getting a lot of carries as of late. 12 in this one again. So 128 yards, 2 touchdowns. Great week for Blake Corum. I will say, yeah, I think you could only flex him, but there's upside there. There's upside for Corum. And they get the Lions this week, which I wouldn't start him anyways, but you know, I think
Yeah, it's tough to read into it too much just because the fact that again the Rams put the Cardinals away very early.
yep.
So Corum was in because of that. But yeah, I agree that if anything were to happen to Kyron Williams, we're talking about an RB1 play week to
Yeah.
week. But at this point, I think yeah, I agree. Definitely needs to be owned in 100% of leagues.
It to me feels a little bit like Monongai Swift, where he's crept in and it's more of a split now. Where it started off being all Kyron. I wasn't worried about it. It's looking more and more like a split. So as much as they did put the game away and could allow Corum to get more touches, they're still giving him touches, and he's had like double digits in like three of the last four or something like that. So
Yeah. No, yeah, it definitely pick him up if for some reason he's available. I don't think he should be, but yeah.
yeah. Cardinals, you know. No Marvin Harrison this week, and Michael Wilson went 11 for 142 and 2 touchdowns, 16 targets. He's he's a wide receiver one if there's no Marv. If Marv
I
plays, I think you can start him still as like a
yeah,
back end wide receiver too. I think you can play both of them because there's such a pass first offense now. They've
yep,
had
there's
no running back since Benson and Connor went down, who Benson also might not come off IR and play again this season. Um, yeah, I mean, Trey McBride is the tight end one. Not a great week for him. Still 10 points, and we're talking about that is not a great week, which is still
yeah,
great for tight ends. Um, outside of this week, where Brissett, they play Houston, where I'd be nervous to play every single one of these guys. I would fire up Brissett, Michael Wilson, Trey McBride every single week. Brissett's been a QB1 every week since becoming the starter in week 6. That
wow,
is like seven, what's that, 8 straight weeks of QB1 play. So,
wow.
um, yeah, like I said, Houston this upcoming week, I wouldn't play him, but I think you can start him otherwise. So I like Brissett. I like Trey McBride a lot. I like Michael Wilson, even with Marv. I think you can play both of them. Running backs, I think you should own Bam Knight, although he's not really an exciting play and he's a flex at best.
Yeah, I just wanted to I saw a stat on Michael Wilson that in games without in a full season 16 game pace without Marvin Harrison,
Oh no.
he's on pace for 2,700 receiving yards, 100 yeah, 2,700. I think it's only been 2 games and he put up like 140 in both. So yeah, crazy
All right,
stat lines without Marv.
we're looking this up.
Yeah, no, look it up. It was some tweet. It could have been like just exaggerating, but I think he's only played in 2 games,
Three. Three
three.
without Marv. Ready for this?
Yeah,
All right. 15 for 185, 10 for 118, 11 for 142 and 2.
So that's definitely what stat was correct. He was
Yeah,
on pace for 2,700 yards.
yeah. And
Wow. Yeah.
and
So,
the targets, he's probably on pace for over like 200 something targets.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. He had like 170 receptions.
Yeah, his receptions would be up through the roof too. I mean,
But yeah,
he's averaging like 13 catches a game. So
that's insane to think about. But yeah, I mean, hey, if Marvin keeps, even if he's not out, that those are no flukes. Like
that
those are
that's what I
crazy
mean.
stat
I think
lines.
you can play him even with Marv
Yeah,
back.
I'd
Just
agree.
not
I
this
definitely
week.
agree.
Not this week against Houston.
Yeah, yo,
Um, Speaking of Houston, Houston beat the Chiefs. Um, the takeaway here, I think Nico Collins you can start every week. I think Jaden Higgins should be owned just because he's been pretty productive in recent weeks, and the Chiefs are a tough matchup. Um, and then Woody Marks, man, 26 carries.
yeah.
And I know it really hasn't been translating. It really hasn't, but I think you have to own him and start him as an RB2. You don't just get that production. So that's how I feel about the Texans. Stroud is not playable in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a we. I have like a weird take about Woody Marks, but I feel like because the Texans defense is so good, he's almost matchup proof because of the fact that like maybe not from production standpoint, but like they're gonna be in every game. Like there's never gonna be a game where like I mean there always could be, of course, but like you know what I mean? Like this is a game where like Woody Marks was a horrible play because
Yeah.
of the Chiefs defense is so good. The Chiefs were maybe gonna jump on him. Like but Marks, they feed him the ball regardless.
Yeah.
26 carries.
I mean,
He gets receiving work.
it wasn't productive. It was
No,
only
oh no, it wasn't.
68 yards, two catches for 8 yards. The touchdown saved everything. It would have been a 9 point day if it wasn't for that touchdown.
Oh,
So,
I know. But what I mean is like there's no one else they trust giving the ball. Like
no,
so
yeah.
like and their defense is so good that they're gonna be in a game regardless.
And
So
they gave a Wale a goal line carry and he scored on it. So if that went to Woody Marks, we're talking over 20 points.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I think the volume is just so there for him.
Mhm.
Yeah, for the Chiefs, I'd still feel confident in Travis Kelce. I'd feel very confident in Rashee Rice, even after their down weeks. I don't like Hunt or Pacheco as they're splitting time. Mahomes, I'm feeling fine about even after a 6 point outing. We know this Texans defense is elite, like
Yep.
elite. So yeah, those three I'm feeling fine about. Mahomes, Rice, and Kelsey. I'm starting them every week with confidence. This is just a defense you do not want to play against, and it's
No.
that simple. So
Yeah, Hunt feels like a Charbonnet where like you can start him in a flex spot if you need to with touchdown upside, but
yep,
um otherwise, yeah, I'd agree.
yep. All right, last game. Chargers, Eagles. Jalen Hurts was atrocious. In the game you needed him, he was atrocious.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't feel that confident about him. I feel more, there are a number of guys. Like, I think this is a great question. Would you rather play Matthew Stafford or Jalen Hurts going into the playoffs?
Hmm. I that's a tough one.
Yeah,
I think Stafford.
me too.
The only reason I'm like contemplating is just because of the rushing touchdown, like almost lock for the most part for Hurts.
Yeah,
Um,
except for when he gets 4 carries for 8 yards.
yeah, except for this week, which was just probably his worst game of his career, definitely his worst game of his career.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'd have to say Stafford in that
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, me too. But and that's why I say I think Hurts, he'll probably fall if I were to like pick guys I'm most confident in, he'd probably fall around QB8 if I had to guess. Like there's probably around 7 guys I'd feel more confident in over Hurts for, the rest of the season. So um you're still starting him each week, but man, his floor low. So I think he has the lowest
Also,
floor of any quarterback, if we're being honest. At
I guess
least
you
at
could
least
say that.
quarterbacks you're starting.
Yeah,
Like,
and also the
we don't have to factor in like JJ McCarthy because
no,
obviously he has a lower floor.
no, and also the first player I think to ever receive negative points for an interception and a fumble on the
The
same
same
play.
play. Yeah.
So
Unreal.
this guy got -4 points on one play.
Yeah.
So not a great game or brutal game.
Barkley, 20 for 122 and a touchdown. Um, Great game. Ripped a 50-yarder. And AJ Brown, 6 for 100 on 13 targets. Listen, both of these guys were in my the last one we did. You weren't able to hop on that pod, but it
Yeah.
was, I targeted specifically playoff schedules. And
Hmm.
if this is what you're getting out of these two guys, both of them were my running back buy and wide receiver buy. This is what you're getting out of these two.
Hmm.
Hope you bought them because I think it wasn't going to get any cheaper for Saquon or AJ Brown. AJ Brown was saying to drop him if you owned him, and then he popped off the next few weeks. And their playoff schedule is amazing. So I think, you know, this is a situation where you hope you have the guys. Like if we look at their playoff schedule, right? They get Vegas, Washington, Buffalo. Great for running backs, great for receivers. It's just a really good overall schedule for the playoffs. So those two guys I'm starting in confidence. Barkley, lower end running back one, but definitely a running back one. AJ Brown, think he's back, wide receiver one for me. Um,
Yeah.
low end,
It's
low end, but
finally. I mean, this was a my guy for me at the beginning of the year. Again, my guys just wanted to show up week 10 and beyond. But
yep,
um, yeah, I'd agree. Definitely in that wide receiver one range for sure for AJ Brown. And then Saquon, this is what he did last year. Just he's a tough one. But yeah, he's a guy that you start every week. You have to.
yep.
But if he plays like this, yeah, I like you said, I hope you trade for these guys when they're at their lowest point because they were super cheap at one point. They were very cheap for as big a names as they are.
Yeah. Devontae Smith, volatile wide receiver three. Goddard, you can start him. You can start him. As long as they're throwing the ball. You might have some low end outputs from him, but 8 for 78 on 10 targets, that's a great output. So yeah, I think you can start Goddard for sure.
Hmm. I'd agree.
Chargers, it wasn't a great game for Herbert or any of their receivers. However, I'd feel pretty good about Ladd moving forward. Um, I'm not feeling good about Keenan. It hasn't been good in a while for him this season. Quinton Johnston, you're banking on a touchdown, so he's a wide receiver three flex play, banking on a touchdown. Gadsden hasn't been producing as of late. Um, Hampton's back. Kamani Vidal was also doing work with him. The two of them, I think, I think it's going to transition into more of Hampton. So I'd feel pretty confident in Hampton as a low end RB2 for now. So I'd feel good starting him. Vidal, I'd hold on to, just, wait and see. Maybe they do go split because
Yeah,
they're trying to preserve Hampton for the playoffs. But, I do kind of think it'll transition a little more towards Hampton.
I think just Chargers track record, I think you're going to have to deal with a split through the fantasy playoffs, in my opinion.
You might
I,
have.
I just think,
Yeah.
just in general, just of where they're at too, they're in a really good spot, like playoffs wise, like
Mhm.
in terms of NFL outlook.
They're
They're in
nine
a
and
good
four.
spot. Yeah, they're in a really good spot, almost a lock to make the playoffs in the AFC. So I think they play their hand in that and they don't rush Hampton back to a massive workload. So that could be kind of frustrating as an owner of him in fantasy, just because like you wait, he had some good weeks prior. Now he's back, had a good week, but it's not going to be what like it really could be with like 20 plus carries and all that, I don't think.
Yeah. All right. Well, I said it might be quicker today. It was definitely not. So let's hit the waivers. Let's hit the waivers. Running backs. If Devin Neal is available, he's owned in a little over 50% of leagues. Pick him up. Kamara could get shut down for the year. Corum, you should pick up. He's been doing work. Singletary, if Tracy's still hurt, they're coming off a bye. Jalen Wright, if Achan misses time. Chris Rodriguez is a fine ad. Bam Knight is a fine ad. Um, and that'll do it for the running backs. Wide receivers, I think Jaden Higgins is a good ad. Tough matchup this week, but he's been producing in the last like 6 weeks or so now. Luther Burden, fine ad, but it might not translate to anything this year. Slayton has actually been producing a little bit, so I think you could add him. Adonai Mitchell, John Mechie, they're not exciting, but if you need a shot in the dark, you could add them. I think Kayshon Boutte's a good ad, and Jalen Coker, he produced in week 13 before their week 14 bye, so that's a more of, a stash wait and see type of thing. Although now that we're in the playoffs, less of stash going on. So yeah, not exciting from the wide receiver position this week. Quarterback, Brissett is still owned under 50% of leagues. I don't get it. He's been a QB1 every week since he's become the starter. Brissett's going to continue to be there for me until he jumps over 50%, which I don't think he will. Trevor Lawrence continues to be a good streaming option. Mariota, especially if Jane Daniels misses time, is a good streaming option. And then Shedeur and Shuck, if you want to take a shot on either of the rookies, I think, why not? Tight end position, Fannin, if he's available, he's owned in a little bit over 50% of leagues, but he balled out with Shedeur this week. And if Njoku misses time, he's going to be even better. I think Brenton Strange is a good ad. I think Colson Loveland is a good ad. And I think Isaiah Likely you can add as well. So that's it from there. There's no true priority for me this week. I'd say Corum is probably the biggest priority. Um, if I had to pick, and Brissett. Don't pick up Brissett to start him this week because it's Houston, but those two are probably my favorites to add this week. As
Yeah.
for, yeah, oh,
If
go ahead.
no, I was gonna say if Corum by any chance is available, definitely
He's
full
under
fab
he's
play.
under 50% of leagues.
Really, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Um, Definitely priority then.
yeah. Drop candidates. You have Ricky Pearsall, still droppable. Bill Krosky, I don't know why he's still owned over 50% of leagues. Matthew Golden is still owned in too many leagues. Hawkinson, Cooper Kupp, Pacheco, all owned in too many leagues. Drop Trey Benson if he's not activated by Wednesday. Then I went through and did some of my own as well. I think you can drop Josh Downs. Trey Tucker, he hasn't been producing. Troy Franklin's droppable. Keon Coleman's still over 50% of leagues. I don't know why. Mooney, Dobbs, Otton is still owned in a few leagues. And Njoku, that was the biggest one to me. I'm like, why is Njoku owned in over 50% of leagues? Please drop Njoku if you have him. Um, so yeah, that is the waiver section. Let's do start sits. I went 5 for 8 last week, so not too bad. Um,
Nice.
so yeah, all right. Let's get underway here. My start of the week, quarterback, Jackson Dart versus Washington. It's a good matchup. JJ McCarthy just produced against them. And it's another week for Dart to get healthy after the bye. So I think this is a week where Dart comes in and you're not going to be disappointed like you were in week 13. I think this is going to be a great week for Dart. Start him.
Yeah, I Dart definitely a start play. I'm happy with him on my playoff roster too.
Mhm.
Um, my start of the week at quarterback's Brock Purdy against the Titans. Um, for me, it's mostly the matchup, but also Purdy has a history of like when he's healthy, he puts up QB1 numbers from a fantasy perspective. But also, just look, it's a very enticing matchup. Shedeur just went wild against them. Not to say anything about Shedeur, but like I don't think any of us were expecting that. So, Purdy, fire him up. I think you could absolutely start him over a lot of guys that we've talked about. Bottom end QB1 for me, like top 10 potentially this
Yeah.
week.
Yeah, I like Purdy too. My running back start of the week is ETN versus the Jets. He's been getting crazy work, and this is a fantastic matchup. So I'm all in on ETN this week against the Jets. I think you should fire him up as an RB1.
Yep. My start at RB is Woody Marks against Arizona.
Good one.
I think just the volume itself, no matter what game they're in, this dude's getting 20 plus carries. I just think at some point it just he has to score a touchdown on the ground. It all has to come together. 100, I don't know. It just feels like a really good opportunity to start him and not be scared of like not really having that big of a game yet. So yeah, fire up Woody Marks this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyron and Corum combined for over 200 yards against the Cardinals this week, so it's a
Yep.
great matchup too. My start of the week at receiver pairs with your quarterback is Juwan Jennings versus the Titans. He's the clear wide receiver one on this team over Pearsall. And I just like the matchup for him. I don't love the player, but I tried to go a little bit deeper rather than, pick a freebie. So
Mhm.
I went ahead with Jennings. I think it's a good matchup. And, even Judy produced this week against them. So I like Jennings.
Yep. My start of the week at receiver is Wandell Robinson against the who are they playing?
Washington.
Against the Commanders. Patrick McCarthy just tore up the Commanders. Not necessarily like a big passing day, but I just think it's a great matchup overall. Um, Dart back to so Wandale's kind of been the guy there in terms of volume receptions. So I just like his chances to have another big day receiving wise with a good match against the Commanders.
Yeah, we like the Purdy Jennings and Dart Wandale stack this week, it seems.
Yep, there.
So um my tight end start of the week, I'm going back to him. Mark Andrews versus the Cincinnati Bengals. It wasn't the best 2 weeks ago, but Lamar's looking a little better. Again, this is like an amazing, amazing matchup. Historically, the worst defense against tight ends. I mean, even Dawson Knox produced on top of Kincaid producing this past week. So yeah, I think there's enough room for both Andrews and Likely to produce, but I'm gonna go with Andrews because give him some love.
I like it. My start at tight end is Kyle Pitts against the Buccaneers. I feel like Pitts has had an up and down year. I feel like at one point where like you could drop him, you could sit him. Like he's been all over the place. But with Kirk Cousins at quarterback these past 2 weeks, like we mentioned earlier, he's been a top seven tight end play. So yeah, I think you could fire him up with confidence again this week against the Bucs.
Yeah, I'm not expecting Drake London either, so I like that.
Yeah,
My sit at quarterback is Jordan Love versus Denver. It's a brutal matchup. I just don't think he's going to get it done in this one. At least enough where you're excited about it.
I'd have to agree with you on that one. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be a gritty game where not much offense goes on.
Yeah.
But my start or my sit of the week at quarterback is JJ McCarthy against the Cowboys. Now that's an interesting one because it's a juicy matchup with the Cowboys. I just I don't think JJ McCarthy is good. I don't I don't know. I don't see him having another big week. Um, I think it's a little risky to put this as my sit of the week just because of the matchup, but I just don't believe in JJ McCarthy. So it especially I think I more did this in a playoff opportunity for a playoffs. I don't think you can trust him. I really, that's a really risky play. So I would sit him unless you absolutely have to play him. But yeah, don't trust
Yeah.
JJ McCarthy this week.
Yeah, it's a great matchup, but yeah, I wouldn't trust him either. Um, My sit of the week at running back is DeAndre Swift versus Cleveland. I'm not buying that it's a bad run defense because Pollard went crazy. He's also still splitting time with Mononga. I just don't think it's gonna end up too well. At the same time, if the Bears go up early and they run like crazy, I'm probably still starting Swift, if I have him. But he's my sit of the week as a clear fade for me this week.
Yeah, you just mentioned him, but my third of the week at running back is Tony Pollard against the Niners. It's more on the lines of JJ McCarthy. I think last week was a complete fluke. We both agreed on that when we were recapping the game. I don't think there's any reason you should be playing Tony Pollard this week. So I think it might be a pretty obvious one, but just thought I'd mention it because of the big week he had last week.
Yeah. My sit at wide receiver. Now, this could definitely bite me in the ass, but it's Michael Wilson versus Houston. And he's been getting so much volume, but if Marv is back, that volume drops. That's one thing. And then the second thing is it's Houston. Houston's
Mhm.
defense has been unreal. I mean, Rashi Rice couldn't do anything against them. So I just really think that matchup alone, this is one of the few teams where it is a situation where you can full on sit guys because it's just not going to work out for them. Like, I mean, it's Patrick Mahomes, man. He didn't do
Mhm.
anything. Rashi Rice didn't do anything. So I think Michael Wilson is a fine sit this week if you can find other options.
Tough to fade Mr.
I
2,700
know.
yards. No,
I know.
no, I think that's a good call on not to buy too much into the hype with this matchup. It's legit. Like you cannot
This
play guys against this
this
defense.
matchup's brutal.
Yeah. My sit at receiver, we talked about him earlier. I went with Egbuka against Atlanta this week. Um, this is absolutely one that could bite me. But just looking at the past production like we talked about, it's been 5 weeks where it's just like 8 targets and he's done nothing with it. And
Mhm.
so it's hard for me to sit there and be like, oh, this is going to be the week. Like that's what you've thought the past 4 weeks. So I'm going to ride similar to your logic with Lamar. Like until he does something, I don't think I can play him.
Mhm.
So against the playoffs, you got to play certain guys at points. But I think this would be like you've been saying, like a fade for the most part this week.
Yeah, our wide receiver sits are so scary.
Yeah.
My tight end sit, I'm going right back to the same guy. I had Gadsden as my sit this week. It worked out perfectly for me. He had 1 point, and I'm going to sit him again against the Chiefs. There's just too many options there in that offense. Hasn't been good in a couple weeks now, so I think a tough matchup too against the Chiefs. So yeah, I just think there's too much working against him that I don't want to play Gadsden.
Okay. Um, my my sit at tight end is going to be Colton Loveland against Cleveland. I think the matchup plays a role, but then again, we saw Tennessee kind of tear up Cleveland defense. I don't, like you said, I don't think that changes the fact that Cleveland's a very good defense. But I think I would just look to other options like Isaiah Likely, maybe Jawan Johnson.
Yeah.
I'd feel more comfortable with those guys than I would Colston Loveland.
Yeah, me too. I think if Juwan Johnson's available, you should definitely pick him up. But
Yeah.
yeah, well, I'll do it. Long episode, but hopefully it helps you with a little bit of insight going into the playoffs. So we'll talk playoffs some more next week. Um, and yeah, best of luck to you all of you in the playoffs. If you are in the toilet bowl and you got to play out of a punishment, best of luck to you in there too. But yeah, we'll see y'all in the next episode.
Peace.